Hey guys, welcome to the Laying Foundations podcast. This is your co-host Davis Hambrick. And alongside me today is Walker Lott. What's up, Walker?
Davis, what's going on, dude? Good afternoon, good night, whatever it is. It's 7:48 at night, so it's not really anything you say. But what's up, man?
Man, it's getting close to my bedtime, so I'm gonna have to run here soon.
Yeah, we talked about on the show today. You go to bed at like 7:44 at night, 7:45.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's at 7:44, 7:45 at night, and then wake up and before the rooster crows.
Well, if you listen back to what Steven said, people who are responsible go to bed at a certain time. I'm just kidding.
Hey,
But
I
man,
love getting up
guys, we
early.
just had a great opportunity to get to learn from a guy named Steven Winston. I'm gonna let Walker tell you more about him, but man, I'm just so passionate and fired up from this conversation. We talked about how he became an intern at Bellsouth, how he worked for the power company, his track while he was in college, and just lean in here and get to learn a lot from Steven.
Yeah, this was awesome. Stephen was an incredible guest. So much wisdom that he shares on this show. So if you are a note taker, I would highly recommend taking notes because the amount of wisdom and knowledge that you can gain from this show, just listening to Stephen speak, is incredible. I mean, we're both fired up from it, and then he brings up John Maxwell, and that is Davis's favorite leadership guy, and talks a little bit about him. So that was a ton of fun. But yeah, incredible show. Just a great man of faith, and love speaking about just how Jesus has drastically affected his life, and how just following after the Lord and being led by Him and walking in Him is the best options for your life. And so I'm excited for you guys to listen to it. But without further ado, Steven Winston. What's going on, Steven? Thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. We're really excited. Just to begin, man, tell us about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? We're excited to learn from you.
Yeah, well, Walker, Davis, first of all, let me say thank you so much for having me on the Laying Foundations podcast tonight. I'm excited to be with you guys. I hope to share something that will be a benefit to you. Hopefully, I can add some value to you, and maybe we'll have some fun too. So, again, my name is Steven Winston. I currently serve as the campus pastor of the McCalla campus at Church of the Highlands. Now, you're thinking, wait a minute. This is the Laying Foundations podcast. This is about construction in the industry, and you're talking about pastoring. This is something not right. So let me kind of back up just a little bit. For 15 years, I worked in the industry. Well, I worked in corporate America, I should say, for the power company. But I'll back up before then. I'm actually born in Queens, New York, raised in a little small town called Pamplico, South Carolina.
Really?
Completing my high school in South Carolina, I actually went to Auburn University. War Eagle, come on, War Eagle.
There we go.
Yeah, where I studied electrical engineering. And upon completing my electrical engineering at Auburn University, I co-opted for four quarters. It was on the quarter system back in those days for 4 quarters with Bellsouth. And then after I completed my co-op obligation with Bellsouth, I wanted to get more experience in the industry before I decided where I wanted to work. So upon completing my co-op, I then interned for a semester with Southern Company, which is a power company that has subsidiary companies, Georgia Power, Alabama Power, at the time Gulf Power, and then also Mississippi Power and Southern Power. Those are the subsidiaries of Southern Company. I worked for Georgia Power as an intern at one of the power plants in Atlanta, Georgia. Had a fantastic time, and by the grace of God, at the end of that internship, I was offered an opportunity to interview for a full-time position. And I loved that because while I had fun at Bellsouth, I got a call from Bellsouth and they said, hey, we're in a hiring freeze. And because of this hiring freeze, we're not hiring any new employees at this time. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And then a couple of weeks later, I get a call from the power company that said, hey, we loved you as an intern. We want to offer you the opportunity to jump in. So I started as a power plant engineer with Southern Company in Georgia Power at one of the plants called Plant Yates, which is just outside of Atlanta in Noonan, Georgia. I'm married. My wife and I have been married for nearly 18 years. 18 years this year. Can you believe that?
That's awesome.
We have 3 kids, a 14-year-old son, a 10-year-old daughter, and a 4-year-old son. And that's kind of my family and my brief story in a nutshell.
Steven, that is awesome, man. That that was a lot here in just a few seconds, and I want to try to go back and really unpack that by each step. And if
Yeah,
we can, let's go all the way back to you were talking about high school
yeah,
and then coming into Auburn. What made you? Was there anything that you knew you were going to go electrical engineering? Was there something that you did growing up? Was it
yeah.
something? Tell us how that happened.
Great question. So, to be honest with you, growing up, I knew nothing about engineering at all. And for a while, I thought I was going to into law or perhaps be an entrepreneur and have my own business. I wasn't sure what I wanted to go in when I was in school. I'll never forget when I was in eighth grade. In eighth grade, in math, and sorry, in my science class, my science teacher was our baseball coach. His name was Mr. Ard, Coach Ard. And so Coach Ard comes to me and says, "Hey, Steven, you know what? I've noticed that you're really good in math and you're really good in science. I think you should be an electrical engineer." And I say to him, "Okay." And it's because of him speaking that into me, well, I've never known at that point in my life what that was, because he saw something in me
I
and
like that.
spoke that over me,
Hmm.
encouraged me to go after something. And so I started to kind of research and look at what really an electrical engineer is and what they do. And I decided I'm going to go after that. So that's where my interest or love, if you will, for engineering began. That's how it started. So I'll say, never underestimate the opportunity to speak into an individual, especially a younger individual, what you see in them. Because
Hmm.
if you see it and you say it, you may be a part of their destiny to becoming what you see. So never
Wow.
underestimate the opportunity to pull out what's on the inside of somebody by simply seeing it and saying it to them. So now I'm going on this pathway of, okay, I want to be an electrical engineer. I thought about, what school do I want to go to? Is it Georgia Tech? Is it Virginia Tech? Is it Howard University? All of these different schools were in my purview where I was considering. And then one summer, the junior year of my high school, junior year in high school, I was introduced to a program by a family friend called the MITE program. And MITE simply means Minority Introduction to Engineering. And the MITE program was a program designed for minorities all across the Southeast to come and engage in engineering classes and practices at the Auburn University campus. Now, before this MITE program was introduced to me, I knew nothing about Auburn at all. I got the application. I applied to this summer program. I got in and went to Auburn University for the very first time in the summer of 1996 for the MITE program, and had so much fun. There were students from Florida and Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama and all points in between converging on Auburn for this summer, and it was a great time. We had class in the morning, and in the evening we had some hangout times, and it was absolutely amazing. And I fell in love with it. And at the end of that summer program, they gave us all applications to apply. So I applied to Auburn University and got some scholarships, some academic-based scholarships and some merit-based scholarships at the end of my high school tenure. And I decided I'm going to be an Auburn Tiger. So that's how I got to Auburn, and that's how it became. That's how I wanted to get into the engineering discipline.
What a cool story. That was
Yeah,
awesome. We
yeah,
don't
man.
ever hear, man, I'm really glad you brought that up, because we don't, we talk about leadership a lot on here as well. And
Yeah,
we've never brought up the speaking life into someone aspect of
yeah,
it. And I think that's so important. And I
yeah.
love that you brought that up, because, you know, just one simple word can really change the course of someone's life in
Brother,
either a
it
good way
can.
or a bad way.
It really can. In fact, the Bible says that the power, this is key, the power of life and death is in your tongue. That's what the
Mm.
Bible says. So what you say can chart a course of life, or what we say can chart a course of death or destruction. So we have to be very key what we say, whether it's in our own personal affirmations, to our family, to our loved ones, to those we work with. That matters. The power of life and death really is in our tongue. So we have to be mindful of what we do and do not say.
That's so good. I know a good story that actually Pastor Chris's father-in-law, Billy Hornsby. I don't know if you ever got the chance to meet him. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he has a story. There's a story about him where he was a smart guy, loved Jesus. He ended up being a sheriff
Yeah.
in Louisiana. But before that, when he was a kid, I don't want to get the story wrong, so I know the basic overview of it. But he was in the classroom, and a teacher spoke something to him and said, like, you will never amount to anything. And he believed it. And so for a while he was, I think he was a troublemaker. He did poor in school until one teacher or someone, a parent's friend, I can't remember who, but they came to him and said, hey, you are really great at math, or you're really great at solving these problems. Like you can be someone, you can go somewhere. And that started to unravel his perception of himself, to eventually where he believed that truth instead of the lie that was spoken over to him so many years before. And then like that changed the course of his life. He went from doing nothing to going to school, becoming a sheriff. And he would pull people over and he would give them two choices. He would say, I can either take you to jail or you can listen to the gospel. I can speak and tell you about Jesus. And that was his two different choices that he gave them, just from one simple word of life spoken over to him so many years ago. So I love that. That's so cool.
Listen, our words matter. They matter. So with that being the case, let's be careful and mindful of the words that we use, because they matter. They're seeds. They're seeds that will eventually produce a harvest in some way, shape, or form. So let's be mindful of our words. Let me also say this. You mentioned Pastor Chris. I would be remiss if I didn't stop and say that I am the campus pastor of the McCalla campus of Church of the Highlands, where Pastor Chris Hodges is the founder and senior pastor. And he pastors or oversees all 23 campuses. And I had the opportunity of leading one of those campuses, but he is the leader of the entire church and a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal visionary, mentor, and a dear person in my life. And I'm grateful to be on the team.
I agree. Knowing Pastor Chris personally, he is a awesome man and man of God, and a really great leader. So it's been really cool to just see the people coming from that, especially you and others. But man, let's go a little bit into after you get your engineering, degree. Well, first of all, how was getting engineering at Auburn? Because we have so many people on here that start in engineering and then they end up going into building science or something like that. Davis is raising his hand right now. But they start in engineering and they realize, this isn't really for me. But you stuck with it. You're like, man, I love this stuff. So getting a degree in Auburn, how was that? Difficulty, or did you ever think about doing something else at some point? And then getting your internships and going into the power company, how was that? Tell us about. I can't wait to hear about that. How was it actually working in the power company as an engineer and having to deal with massive amount of energy that you have to deal with on a daily basis, and learning all the different things that come with that?
So good. So let's talk about this, the process of going through the engineering discipline at Auburn. I would say I had a fantastic experience, but the experience was key because you're right, it's not easy. In fact, a lot of the schools, Auburn included, they have what's called weed out courses. Physics was a major weed out course. Chemistry.
Amen.
Come on, brother, I'm preaching good. Physics, chemistry was a major weed out course. And if you don't pass those courses, you can't get into the meat of your engineering curriculum without passing those core courses first. So therefore, there are two things I want to say. Whenever you're going into engineering or whatever field you're going into, you have to be mindful that you are making an investment into yourself. And so with that being the case, there are certain things that you will have to do, and there are certain things you just cannot do. So let's get practical and real, fellas. There are going to be parties, and there are going to be other social events. There are going to be football games and basketball games. And all those things are fine. But at the end of the day, while those things are fine and fun, that's not why you're there. You're at the school that you are attending to get a wonderful education so that you can step into your field of choice to produce in society in a great way and add value. So never forget why you're there. Yes, have the fun whenever you can, but don't let the fun outweigh the fundamental reason why you're at the school in the first place. I say that because there are so many friends of mine that started at Auburn and started engineering and started majoring in the fun instead of majoring in their coursework. And in the second and third semester, they were back home trying to figure out what they're going to do now. So make sure you major in the things you went to school for and not major in the fun. Now, that's very key. Secondly, I will say don't underestimate the power of community. So at our church, Church of the Highlands, we say this. We say life change happens in the context of relationships. All that simply means is we are a church of small groups. And little did I know that not only is small groups, the small groups work in a church, it also works at school. So I mentioned chemistry. So one of the reasons why I did well in chemistry is because we had a small group that got together and studied the chemistry formulas and studied all of the notes we would receive. We'd get together and we'd quiz each other and ask each other questions. And because of that small group, I aced chemistry. Not because I'm a chemistry major. I hate chemistry, let's be honest. But because of that group, it was some individual that was stronger in chemistry and stronger in this aspect. And we got together and we held each other accountable and held each other in that particular class. And because of that, we did really, really well. Now, I did well in math, but at the same time, for those that had some challenges in math, I would help my friends out in math. What's my point? Get around individuals that may be stronger than you or more or a little bit further than you in certain coursework, and then allow them to help you get to where you need to get to. At the same time, look for those individuals that may be a couple of steps behind you and bring them up as well, because together, all of you, each of you can make it through the discipline, make it through the coursework and graduate. Does that make sense? So never underestimate the power of majoring in what you're going to school for, and never underestimate the power of small groups, because those small groups getting together and studying. I remember there are several nights we'd be in an apartment and we put on a movie and have them be playing in the background, but we're studying for this particular subject matter, and we're quizzing each other and we're encouraging each other, and we come out acing the test. Why? Because we put in the effort together to make sure that no person will be left behind. We're going to finish this class out together, and that matters.
Yeah, I love that, Stephen. You touched on two things that I love. The first one was going to school for your education, and
Yeah,
we talked about how I didn't last in engineering. I think that's part of my personal testimony. I
yeah,
was doing things that I shouldn't have been, and then I finally get into building science, and I'm back on the path with I'm seeking God, and it's amazing how you start doing that, and He'll change your life in a heartbeat, and He'll
absolutely,
start pulling things that you don't even deserve and start helping you. But
absolutely.
then the other thing I love that you mentioned was talking about, never underestimate. You talked about this further back in the podcast, but never underestimate the time you have to invest in other people. And you used the example of talking to, little children, but really think about that at any aspect of life. And it saddens me for some of the people in the construction industry that don't take that so seriously, because I'm at a stage now where I'm having someone pour and invest into me, and I'm looking for that guy to invest into someone else. Because, like you said, our tongue and what we do controls so much of our mindset, how we affect people in this room or in our community. And so, I love those 2 points. And if we can shift really quickly,
Yeah.
I want to talk about how do you make your vocation your ministry.
Wow, what
Um,
a great question.
my aunt is someone that really challenges me to say, the construction industry, if you think about it, you think about how it's just a field that's waiting to be harvested. It's
Yeah,
waiting for a guy to come in. It's waiting
yeah,
not for a guy. It's waiting for the Lord to come in and really just change it, because there are people that are, dealing with addiction, dealing with never hurting the gospel, dealing with the guy that's willing to stand up for him and love Jesus. What do you think about that?
that's a great question. I really think we have the right mindset. I mean, obviously, when we go to college and we get into our field of choice, one of the things we want to do is make money, and that's fine. I get it. But if we only seek out or purpose to make money, there's going to be something on the inside that's going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I've made the money. I'll have the toys that come with the money, but just something is missing. I want more. And really, what that boils down to is God made us specifically for a purpose, and a part of that purpose is serving other people. You use the word using your ministry, your vocation as your ministry. I love that, because the word minister simply means servant. So how can I serve well or serve people well in my vocation? How can I make sure that I'm adding value to other people in my vocation? Right. And so that's asking, okay, who is on my team? Who is in this career path with me that perhaps may not be where I am? And I can help them by pouring into them, by encouraging them, by assisting them, or just being their cheerleader for a moment in time, whatever that case may be. Looking at their current situation and saying, hey, how can I make their season brighter, make their day better? Let them know that what they're doing is valuable. Let them know that they're valuable. Let them know that no matter how hard this project or this budget or this schedule may be, they're going to make it because they're not in this by themselves. Jesus says, I came to this world not to be served, but to serve and to give my life as a ransom for many. Jesus came to serve. And if we have that same mindset of serving others, we can truly make a difference no matter what our vocation may be. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not the amount of money, that's not the number of dollars in our bank account, which is fine. That's great. You make a lot of money. That's fantastic. But if our only drive is to make a lot of money, we're going to finish that career feeling empty or feeling unfulfilled. It's only when we begin to serve others and to help others that will begin to make a difference and feel that sense of fulfillment. I'll never forget, I was in my 8th grade AP English class. As a matter of fact, it was 12th grade AP English, and we're finishing up the program. And my teacher, her name was Gail Morgan, never forget, fantastic teacher. She would often say to us at 12th grade, she says, it matters not the accomplishments that you achieve or the money that you make. She says, what matters most is your service to others. Now, we're 12th graders in high school, and she's saying these words to us, and for a season, it was going in one ear and out the other. But now, many, many years later, I'm realizing that she was absolutely right. The accolades are fantastic. The accomplishments are great, and we all want to achieve those, and we should achieve to the best of our ability. But let's not just achieve without considering service to others, because as we serve others, that's the greatest achievement that we can make. At the end of the day, that's what Jesus did when he hung on that cross to suffer, to bleed, and to die, to give every single one of us access to a relationship with God. What was he doing? He was serving others. He was serving others to the point to give them what they needed, but they could not pay the penalty for. So service to others is extremely valuable.
It's awesome. Like, so much wisdom that you just put out. And one thing that really stood out to me is the aspect or the part about you saying, helping to encourage and build others up, because I feel like what happens so much in this world today is that now, people are so consumed with trying to get there and trying to achieve and get to the next highest point that they don't remember, they forget about the people below them and to bring them up. Our guest that we just had on our last podcast was Johnny Green, and what Johnny speaks about is a lot of leadership. And one thing that he, really harps on is that in order for you to get to somewhere else or where you want to be in your career or relationship, wherever, you have to train the person below you to take your position. And so he's a project manager on a site in Nashville, Tennessee. And he said, in order for me to get to a senior project manager or wherever I want to be, I have to train my assistant project manager to do the work of a project manager, even when that's not his title. So, just going off of that, how do you think that you can bring value to the person above you? This is kind of Davis's question. I'm actually stealing it right now. But how do you think that you can bring value to the person above you as well as bringing value to the person below you? Because they're two different positions that you have to, they're two different responsibilities, two different positions. So speak on that a little bit.
So good. So I'll start with the person above you. To bring value to the person above you, you have to understand what's the touchdown line. So for example, if Nick Saban, and I can't believe I'm using this, I'm an Auburn guy, and I'm using a Nick Saban example. Can y'all believe this? Lord have mercy. Somebody help.
We're going to get kicked out.
I know it, really. So if Nick Saban is above me, he has an expectation. If I am his quarterback, he wants me to throw touchdowns or to limit interceptions. If I'm his running back, he wants me to run the ball in such a way that I don't fumble and I advance it down the field until we score touchdowns. So in order to be of value to those above you, you have to know the expectation. So be willing to ask, okay, what is the expectation? So I know what it is clearly. Clearly, what is it that I am asked to do? Make sure it's clear and you understand it, and then begin to attack that. And then don't be afraid of feedback. Okay, I've done this. I've ran the ball 5 yards. Can I do that better? Is there a better way to do it? Can I do it differently? Should I be doing this differently? Should I be trying to catch the ball more as opposed to running with the ball? So therefore, making sure that you're being open to feedback, because feedback makes us better. I never forget, as a campus pastor, we get a chance to communicate a lot from the stage. And one of the things we want to do is communicate as well as we can. And I often have received feedback from my direct supervisor, my direct manager, with saying, hey, make sure you say this, don't say that, slow down, make sure you're monitoring your pace, smile more. What they're doing, they're making sure that I understand their expectation and give me feedback so that I can not just meet, but exceed the expectation. So with regards to those as above us, let's be willing and open to critical, or I could say constructive feedback, because that feedback makes us better, makes us effective, and helps us hit that touchdown line. Now, for those that's under us, how do we serve them well? You've already mentioned it, but Pastor Chris says it this way: be willing to work yourself out of a job. You know, oftentimes we feel like, okay, if this is my position, if someone's better than me, oh my gosh, they're going to get rid of me. Not necessarily. That is a myth. What will happen, however, if we begin to develop those under us to do what we're doing, then that increases our capacity, and that makes us even more valuable to the organization, such that they give you greater responsibility or a different position altogether. So never ever fear developing others, bringing somebody alongside you. I love what John Maxwell says. John Maxwell says this is the way you develop an individual. It starts with this: I do it, and then I do it, and that individual watches, and then that individual does it, and I watch, and then that individual does it for somebody else, and then they watch, right? And so I do it, and then I do it, they watch. Then there's some feedback, obviously, and then they do it, I watch, and then they do it, and then they do it, and somebody else watches them. And that's how you begin, or you implement the development cycle, and you bring people up and you allow them opportunities to fail, because they will fail sometimes. Never fear failure. If you feel failure, you'll never ever advance in leadership or in opportunities. Any great leader will tell you there have been failure upon failure upon failure in their story, and the failure makes them better. Failure makes them more efficient. It makes them think about things more, evaluate the experience, and get better. So never fear the failure. But once you're doing that, allowing individuals to fail, showing them, then letting them do it, and then allowing them to bring others into the picture. From there, then you start a process of developing people, and that makes you valuable as well.
PC, Stephen, I love PC and I love John Maxwell. Those are two of my
Yeah.
favorite guys right there. John Maxwell is big in my life. He is someone that I started to learn from just by finding a podcast, and that point of the four things you mentioned, by eventually getting someone to replicate basically what you started, is the ultimate development path. But if we can, that made me start to think about a trajectory. And Walker talked about this for a little bit, but people in my shoes, and you've been here, you were the electrical engineer, you graduated from college, had an internship, and you're fresh out, entry level guy, and you're trying to get on this trajectory of, climbing instead of plateauing, right? You're trying to get to that next spot. And so many people in my generation now don't know how to get to that next spot. And hey, you just told them how you could do it right there. I love it. I love that, Stephen. I think you did a really good job. And if you don't mind, I would actually like to go back to that point. Talk about your internship experience, because the co-op experience with Bellsouth, I'm sure, just lets you have a great opportunity whenever you finally got to Georgia Power.
Absolutely. So you're gonna realize that whether you go into electrical engineering, mechanical, aerospace, chemical, whatever discipline you're going in, it's very vast. It's broad. So saying that I'm going to be an electrical engineer doesn't necessarily point you into one specific direction with respect to career path. So one of the great ways to assess and evaluate, one, is this the right discipline for me? And two, what type of work do I like in this discipline? Is to co-op. The co-op program was fantastic. Prior to going to college, I knew nothing of the co-op program. But after I got the understanding of it, went into the co-op program and realized this is great, because now I can work a semester, go to school a semester, gain some experience, gain some time in that role, or in that career, get some money as well, and then go back and study. And so there's actually an opportunity for me to have a break from school, get in my field of choice, make some money, and then then break from being in the field of choice and come into school. And I love that whole process. So the co-op program for me was fantastic. Did that with Bellsouth for, as I said, 4 quarters, and that was great. But something in me was like, let's not stop there. So once I finished my 4-quarter co-op obligation, I could have stopped and been done with it, but I wanted to do more. So I took one summer semester to intern with the power company. And that's when I went to Atlanta, Georgia with Georgia Power and interned at Plant McDonough there in the Georgia area. And little did I know that was going to be my springboard into my career. So I say this: while you're thinking and choosing and trying to figure it out, never negate the God factor. I'm a person of faith. You guys are people of faith. With that being the case, never negate the God factor. What do I mean by that? 2 things. The Bible says the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. I love that verse so much because it reminds us that at the end of the day, if we allow God to do so, he can, and he's able to order our steps in the direction to where he would have us to go to meet the destiny that he's called us, or he's birthed us to meet in the first place. I really believe that the reason I up at Southern Company as a full-time employee is because God would order my steps that way. And a part of that ordering, one of the steps to that step was my internship that summer at Plant McDonough. So never negate the God factor. Yes, we're smart. Yes, we're astute. Yes, we have these great aspirations, and all those things are fine. But don't neglect God. Don't negate or neglect the fact that God has a plan for your life. And if we walk in his ordered steps, he'll never, ever steer us wrong. That doesn't mean we're going to be perfect and I don't have any problems along the way. There will be challenges. There will be shortfalls. There will be failures. But God has a plan, and never negate or neglect the plan of God for your life.
Yeah, I can be the first one to jump on board with you there. I've done it without God, and I've done it with God, and I'll tell you right now, it's a lot better to have God on your side and to just experience the peace and joy that you submitting to God every day. Luke 9:23 talks about picking up your cross daily, submitting to God, but dying to yourself. And you read that verse and you just glance by it, doesn't mean much. But back in the day, people knew that picking up your cross daily meant that you're literally picking up your cross to get beaten like Jesus did. And think about that image and then read that verse. And Walker, you can take it from here, but I just love that, Stephen. I think that you're a great communicator. You've obviously been worked on this a lot, and I just love what you're saying right now.
Yeah, this is awesome to learn from you and just see how you speak and carry yourself and respond. Man, going forward with really talking about now getting into your career with the power company and actually getting to use your degree as an engineer. Tell us about just kind of the environment that is. What is it like working in a power company that is responsible for providing power and energy and really, a physical life that we have every day, to live in? I mean, how is that? What goes on? What is it that people from the outside in or don't know about it? Things that go on that we never even thought of that keeps the world kind of running power wise.
Absolutely. So I had fun. It was great. I had a fantastic time. So as a power plant engineer, I was literally in the power plant. And if you notice, the power plant is never visible or in a large open space. It's always
Right.
off the beaten path. So what you have to realize is when you get into your career choice, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. So for example, for me, our first meeting in the morning was at 6:30 a.m. Let me say that again. Our first meeting was at 6:30 a.m. That means I had to get up and be ready to be at that meeting by 6:30 a.m. And the place where I was living at the time was about a 30-minute drive or about 15-minute drive from my apartment to the plant. So being responsible, going to bed on time so I can get up early enough to get to the plant and be at that 6:30 meeting every single day.
Davis
Right?
is good at that.
Amen to that. Come on.
He goes at like 7:45 every day.
Yeah.
Stephen, I wake up at 4, so come on.
Come on, man. Hey, it matters. It matters. And then in the environment we're in, let's be honest, it was an environment that could have been very dangerous. So safety had to be a number one priority. Wearing a hard hat every single day, wearing your personal, we call it PPE, personal protective equipment, wearing your safety glasses, wearing your steel-toe boots every single day, wearing 100% cotton clothing, because if something were to get on you and it wasn't cotton, like you get burned for any reason, that's going to stick to your skin. So being mindful and intentional of what you did and did not wear was important. So, and then thirdly, it's extremely hot. So at a power plant, and I'll give you the process in just a second, it's extremely hot. And so that being the case, you have to stay hydrated and be aware of the surfaces that you are standing on or standing around, not touching things because you could get burned severely. And so being mindful of those things, time to get to work, what you should and should not wear, being aware of your surroundings and the environment, having a flashlight if necessary, making sure that you're making your rounds. So for us, at that time, things have changed significantly since then, but we used coal as our fuel source. So what we would do was take the coal and grind it to the consistency of talcum powder. Then we'd actually blow that into a huge furnace. And we would then ignite the coal, and you had this huge swirling fireball inside this huge furnace. It was amazing. Wow. Inside this furnace were these tubes, we call them boiler tubes. So it's almost as if we had this this huge tea kettle, if you will. It's a boiler. And so we're pressurizing the water inside the tubes, and we're heating it up to 1,000 degrees and 1,000 pounds of pressure. Significant temperatures, significant pressures. And then the water, obviously, it turns to steam. And we would transport that steam and move it across these huge turbines. And it kind of puts you in the mind of a jet turbine. And so it turns the turbine by the steam. The steam is turning the turbine. And then that turbine is coupled to we call it an exciter or a generator. And that generator is excited, if you will. And that was what we did. That was the process we would take to generate electricity. So I was at a generating plant. So we generated electricity and then send it to our friends in transmission and distribution to send it out to our customers all across the Southeast. But yeah, that's what we did every day to generate electricity. So that meant making sure we did it safely, doing it efficiently. Projects from time to time will be going on what we call planned outages to bring our machines down, to replace boiler tubes, to replace turbine blades, to replace motors that need to be replaced, or work on this, that, and the other. Again, I started as electrical engineer. So one of my projects was putting in what we call a tripper car. And the tripper car sat on a tripper floor. And the tripper floor was the place where the coal would begin, and we'd use that tripper. It was basically a series of conveyor belts that would convey the coal from our coal yard into the plant, so that it would send it down to what we call a pulverizer to pulverize the coal and start the process of sending it into the boiler to start boiling the water that's in those tubes. It was so much fun. It was great. So there were several different projects I got a chance to lead while as a plant engineer. And I'll never forget the day when the plant manager came to me and says, "Hey, we want you to consider going the leadership development route as opposed to the plant engineer route." And I was like, "What does that even mean? I don't know. What is that? What's going to happen?" So prayed about it, talked to the Lord about it. And I'll say this: whenever you get an opportunity, or whenever you're wanting to do something, always use this verse to guide you. And it's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways," this is verse 6, "in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths." I share that because I went to college to be a plant engineer. When then I'm offered this opportunity to go leadership, and I'm thinking, what do I do? What do I do? I never forget, I was visiting another plant one afternoon, and my thought was, do I want to do this every day? Or do I want to go chase, or do I want to at least consider this other opportunity? And I felt good. I felt at peace about chasing or pursuing the other opportunity, which was leadership development. And so from there, I transitioned to another plant where I was a team leader over a group of electricians and instrument control specialists and mechanics. And That was amazing because those guys had way more knowledge and experience than I had. But I wasn't there because of the knowledge or the experience. I was there to learn how to lead people much older than me, much more savvy and experienced than me, but not letting my age or the lack of experience stop me from learning how to lead, how to influence, how to direct, how to give feedback, how to communicate, how to execute, how to make sure we get the job done. So that was fun. That was absolutely amazing. And kind of fast forward, by the grace of God, went from being a team leader over the maintenance crew, which are electricians and mechanics and instrument control specialists, to being an operations team leader on night shifts. Now on night shift, Lord have mercy, working from 7 p to 7 a, on and off shift every other day, and then how to operate the plant, controlling the plant, making sure the pressure is right, the temperature is right, and the motors are right, and all those things are great. So this is wonderful learning and training I'm getting. And then I never forget, I'll check this part of the story and I'll stop so you can ask more questions. But I'm on night shift and I realize that a position comes open called the assistant to the senior vice president of the other company. I'm thinking, wow, I would love that opportunity. And so I call a mentor of mine and says, hey, there's a job that's on the board that's the assistant to the senior vice president. Should I go after it? He says, no, you've only been in operations for 6 months. You need to be in operations at least for 2 years before you do anything else. I said, okay, that's fine. That's great. But then something on the inside of me just wouldn't let me let it go. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct our path. So I started praying, Lord, I don't know, but I feel like this is you. And so if it's your will, give me favor, open the door, you make the way. And I'll never forget sitting in a conference room with the senior vice president and the chief information officer and my plant manager sitting in the interview and talking on that interview. And one of my favorite scriptures is, your gift will make room for you and place you before great men. Now, I'm not saying I'm great, because I'm not, but I am gifted. Every single one of us has a gifting that God has given us for a reason. And I'll get back to that a little bit later. But the Bible says your gift will make room for you. And so I went to that interview that day. It went okay. And I'll never forget, I was at home sleeping, getting ready to go to work at the plant that night. And the senior vice president calls me. And he says, hey, Steven, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. He said, what you doing? I said, I'm just sleeping, getting ready for work tonight. He said, well, I want to offer you the opportunity to come and be my assistant too. My eyes welled up with tears. I'm like, oh my gosh, God has opened the door. I didn't do this. There were individuals that interviewed alongside me that had more tenure, more experience, and more relationships. But God and his grace and his mercy opened the door to allow me to get greater experience in that role. And to this day, I'm still grateful for that experience because it was fantastic.
That's so cool.
I share that because you may not be the brightest or the most connected or the most experienced, but if you have God, you plus God is always the majority. And God opens doors that no man can close in your. I'm gonna stop. I've been saying.
Amen, Steve. Come on.
Oh, keep going, man. Golly,
man, what is that? What is that verse, Steve? I've never heard that before.
Which one?
About the gifts. The gifts will influence men. What did you say?
Yeah, your gift will make room for you and place you before great men.
One of the things that I thought was really cool for me, and I'm gonna pick your brain here because this is the part that really gets me motivated. Is I see a guy that starts out and is working in the power company and is doing things. You're talking about being intentional, remembering things you got to do to have that job, but then you have the opportunity to be in leadership development, and that is what fires me up. And that I see a guy that's going and pursuing that. Tell me about leadership development and how do you mentioned something. How did you become okay with, all right, I am not the master at this subject. I don't know what these guys know, but I got to go lead them. I'm going to go figure it out. These guys are going to be older than me. I'm the younger guy, but I'm going to go lead them. How do you do that?
So good. So John Maxwell talks about the 5 levels of leadership. The 5 levels of leadership. And in those 5 levels, he lets us know, how do we progress effectively in leadership? Because the first level is the position level, right? That's the first level, but you never want to stop there. Never want to stop, because that just says I'm leading because I have the position, right? Anybody can do that. You're going to respond just because you have the position. But what you want to do is grow in your leadership. So one of the things that I learned from several different mentors and leaders is don't just be satisfied with the role. That's the first level of leadership. Don't be satisfied with that. The second level of leadership is the permission level. That's when people give you permission to lead them, give you permission to influence them. How does that happen? That happens relationally. That happens when the guys are on the job and let me tell you a story. So we have this thing called the clinker grinder. What? The clinker grinder. So I mentioned when we're in the power plant and the coal is blown into the furnace, it burns. Well, all the coal doesn't burn effectively. So the leftover coal, the LOI we call the leftover coal, it falls into the bottom of the pit, right? And that has to be done away with. So when it falls in that pit, it falls into some water, and the clinker grinder, it grinds the clinker. We call those clinkers. It grinds those clinkers up, and it would send those to what we call the ash pond. Well, from time to time, that clinker grinder would need some maintenance on it. So our maintenance guys would go and they do maintenance on the clinker grinder. They get their mallets and they would beat on it and fix this or change out a solenoid or rewire the controls to that clinker grinder. What am I saying? Because I didn't know what they knew, but I wanted to get their buy-in and gain influence with them. That means going out there with them, being in the trenches with them, and letting them know, hey, I don't know how this works, but I'm willing to learn. So that means, hey, give me that mallet. I want to get a couple of swings on that clinker grinder. Let me swing on it. So I'm swinging on it, and hey, I'm swinging and having fun, and they're laughing at me because I'm not swinging as well as they're swinging. Look at this guy over here. He's not swinging that well. But as they're laughing, what's happening? The barrier is coming down. We're gaining relational equity. And that's allowing me the opportunity to speak into them and gain more influence. Never underestimate the power of building relationships with people, not just wanting to boss and to tell them what to do, but get in their world. Hey, you have kids? How old are your kids? What do kids love to do? What do you love to do outside of work? Hey, outside of work one day, let's go get a burger. Let's go get some coffee. Let's go hang out. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to meet your kids. Get relational. Because when you get relational and get in individuals' worlds, that's what allows us the permission to influence. And when we gain that influence, that's when we're able to start leading. So don't just stop with position, get permission. And you get permission by getting in people's worlds and getting relational. Never, ever forget that. And then the next level is production. Okay, what can you do? How can you produce? What things can you get done? You may not be able to do X, but can you do Y? Can you do Z? So show them what you bring to the table. How can you be effective in your world in such a way that you add value or you produce to the bottom line? That increases your influence as well. And people will say, that's an individual that I want to lead. The next level is people development. And we've already talked about this, so I won't go back into it. But not only do you have the role, not only are you willing to build relationships with them, not only are you wanting to get stuff done, but now you're saying, not only are you a good mechanic, but I want to train you and develop you to be a team leader one day. I want to train you and develop you to be on the planning team one day. You're a developer of people. And when they see, wow, he doesn't just like me because I can swing a mallet or wire up a solenoid or change out this grinder, he sees more in me and he's willing to bring me up to a different level. I appreciate that. That's somebody I want to follow. And then finally, the last is the pinnacle level. And on that level, simply all we're doing is just being willing to share your experiences, share what leadership lessons you learn with other leaders as well. And so I share all that to say, we should all be learning and growing as leaders. Leaders are learners. Leaders are growers. When you stop learning, you stop growing. When you stop growing, that's when you stop leading. So don't be satisfied with the position alone. Be willing to gain the permission. Go after the production. Produce something. Get some stuff done. Be willing to add value to others. Develop people. and then let's all aspire to get to that pinnacle level. I'm not there yet, the pinnacle. I want to get to that pinnacle level where I am leading multiple leaders, high-level leaders, and encouraging them and molding and developing them.
Wow. That is awesome. Davis, you go ahead. You have something.
Yeah, I just want to. I can really
Davis
relate.
Davis
Steven.
loves
Leadership.
loves leadership development. I mean, I love it too. But you quoting John Maxwell. I mean, he loves John Maxwell, so he's in heaven right now.
Yeah, there you go. My aunt is owns a leadership company, and we'll get her on one day. But she has spoken into my life and invested in me and helped me. And I just love leadership because I've seen how much it's developed me, and it's made me want to help others and do that. So one of the things you were talking about the clinker and you swinging the mallet. It brought me back to a day when I was in Auburn when I wanted to be relational with people, and I knew I wasn't going to do well. We had some guys that could, smack a wooden 2x that they cut off the end so that they could make a post in the ground with a sledgehammer. And so, I was watching these guys; they're hitting it just hard as crap, just hitting it, and it's going down. They're driving it into the Auburn clay, and you let that stuff get dry in the summer. It's hard. And I get over there and I'm literally about to break the wood in half because I've missed it every single time. I haven't hit it hard enough. And these guys are looking at me like, what in the world? But I wanted to go over there and just show them I'm willing to do it and learn from them. And after that, I made some pretty good friends. So I can speak to that personally. And I wanted to give you a laugh out of that.
That's pretty. I love that story. That's fun. That's how you build relationships. That's how it happens.
That's hilarious. I think what most people don't realize is that people are so much more willing to be open and willing to learn if you show interest in them. A lot of people just don't. A lot of people are so consumed by themselves and what they got to do next, so they don't take that second to slow down and say, "Hey, tell me about yourself." And I don't know if you know Jason Long with High. Okay, so Jason, I consider him one of my mentors. Me and Jason, we'll work out together every time I'm home. He's an early riser too, so we're like 5 a.m. We're hitting it hard, doing something in the gym, and I love it. I love Jason. He's such an incredible dude and speaks life into me and so many others. But one thing that he has really pounded in my head, and I'm not very good at it, but it's something I love hearing from him and watching him and how he does it, that he never asks people what they do. He asks them who they are. That's something that's really cool to see, is that he wants to know the person. He wants to know about them, like you were saying, about their children, about their family, about what they like to do outside of work, outside of what everyone normally sees. He wants to know about them as a person. I think that's really huge and something really cool. And you spoke about adding value, and you definitely added value to us today. And I know Davis can attest, and we very much appreciate that and love that. And it's been an incredible time. And we're starting to run out of time a little bit, and that's, I hate that we could talk for hours on this. Honestly, it's incredible, and we love it. But one of the questions I love to ask you is kind of for those who are younger in their early 20s or high schools, or even later 20. I mean, that's still young. What is some advice that you would give to the younger generation with the wisdom that now? If you could go back in time and tell yourself something, what would it be?
Yeah, a couple of things. I would say, don't stop learning. Don't stop learning, whether it's a podcast or a book or a mentor, whatever the case may be. Don't stop learning, because the more you learn, the more it gives you the opportunity to make better decisions and to step into leadership opportunities and to make a greater difference. One, I would say that to the younger generation. Two, I will say again, as you're seeking your career aspirations, don't negate God. God created every single one of us with a purpose, on purpose. And the reason I'm sitting in my seat that I'm sitting in right now, as much as I love the power company and that experience, at the end of the day, God didn't design me just to do that. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to go into full-time ministry and be pastors or whatever, but you can be a marketplace minister, marketplace leader. So the point I'm making is, don't negate God's call on your life, whether that's a call to be an administrator or a governor or a president or a CEO or an engineer or whatever your role is, even in that role, God wants to use you to make a difference. So never stop learning and never negate God's purpose for your life. One of my favorite verses is Jeremiah 29:11. He says, "For I know the plans I have for you." God has a plan for every single one of us. "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future." So my hope is that all the younger generation would not allow God's purpose for their lives to be unfulfilled. Said differently, go after God's purpose and don't be satisfied with it being left unfulfilled.
Wow. That's what an incredible word of wisdom to end on, man. That's awesome. And seriously, I have 3 or 4 pages of notes right here sitting next to me. I mean, that's the most I've taken. That's insane. And I can't wait to go back over this and listen to it again, because I think this is going to keep on giving, especially to so many people that listen to it. But Davis, if you got anything else to add, go for it. If not, we'll close it out.
Well, Steven, I just appreciate you being willing to jump in and invest with us. I know for 2 young guys that don't know very much, I'm excited that you're willing to talk to us. I mean, I'm like Walker here. It's not just the notes, but I feel like I've connected and made a new relationship. And so, man, I just appreciate you being willing to pour into us, Steven.
Hey, let me say this. I honor you guys. You guys are doing a fantastic job with the podcast. You're adding value to others. The Bible says those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. So I think God's going to bless this, and he's going to use it to help others. He's going to give you guys a greater platform to touch more people. So I'm honored to be in this space with you, and keep doing what you're doing. You're making a big difference, guys. Kudos to you.
Man, thank you so much. That truly means the world. We really appreciate it. Steven, thank you again, man. This is such a blessing and an honor. I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks again, guys. Take care.